Just sitting for a minute in this beautiful reverence for the Ayurvedic teachings that are about to be shared and come through, just opening to a lot of gratitude, honestly. These practices have been transformational for our community, my particular specific life, and then our Lola community in grounding it within a wisdom tradition that's wider, bigger, greater, vaster than we'll ever know, and be able to hold at that highest level of gratitude and reverence for teachers, teachings, books, sharing this wisdom. It's really that profound. So before we jump into the teachings, let's just take a minute to actually feel our body breathing, relaxing together, learning, get some water. Just feel your body breathing as we jump into this little container workshop teaching around some Ayurvedic wisdom. My intention is that you will be interested and intrigued to join us for more study in our fall immersion or perhaps a future immersion. And if that's not aligned for you right now, or you're not able to, for whatever reason, that this is still of highest and best, that this is of service to your life as it is right now. Okay, so gratitude, reverence, lineage, teachers. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor or clinician. I'm an enthusiastic student of Ayurvedic lifestyle wisdom, especially around the divine feminine realm, around the feminine practices for daily life, and around deep elemental healing for balance and harmony. And so I really like to make those distinctions because there are really highly trained Ayurvedic doctors and clinicians who use different, more specific approaches, especially if you're in a health crisis. This type of wisdom that I'll be sharing today is really wonderful for proactive deepening of emotional and spiritual health that can ripple out into physical, mental health. Okay. Mind, soul, body. Mind, soul, and body, these three are like a tripod. By their conjunction, existence of the living world is sustained. Knowledge of Ayurveda is offered for this sake, conjunction only. And so that's what I'm rooting us in. It's like, this is for that harmony, that conjunction, that oneness, that feeling state of I'm here, I belong, and I know how to work with my own self-healing. These slides are from the Ayurveda and the Mind conference from, I want to say it was 3 years ago now. Many of them are from that conference. Holistic approach to well-being. Seekers of well-being in the present and future must examine the thoughts, words, and actions they are holding on to. So this is a really important teaching for physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, because on the Ayurvedic path, accumulation of anything can cause dis-ease. Accumulation of anything can cause dis-ease. So seekers of well-being in this present moment and in their future self must examine the thoughts, words, and actions they are holding on to. So what is being held? I'm just going to weave in here some of the calendar teaching for right now, but no matter when you're watching or listening to this, it relates. That's why you'll hear a lot of talk around surrender, let go, release, because for this well-being in the present and future, we don't want to be accumulating thoughts, words, and actions that are causing dis-ease or causing stagnation or causing congestion. The virtuous one, who is free from all unwholesome deeds of mind, speech, and body, is indeed happy and enjoys the fruits of virtue, which becomes your dharma. In this context, dharma means life path. Wealth, arta, that means that you have acquired wealth. The root of wealth is well-being, is like wellness at every level. And so to have wealth means that we have the resources to live our lives, and desires, comma, pleasure. Okay, so when we're free of the heaviness of the mind, speech, and body, we can experience the fruits of that, the sort of four desires. That's a whole different class, but let's just focus today on that dharma, arta, and kama, or virtue, wealth, and desires. Those are the fruits of the labor. So we're not doing it to go get better desires or more wealth. We are experiencing, when we're free from the accumulation, these things are what come to us naturally in harmony. This is one of my favorite pictures. This comes up all the time in Ayurvedic teachings, the tree of disease, the tree of wellness and well-being. So if you look at the roots, we've got inflammation, stress, poor diet, toxins, lack of sleep, poor relationships, nutrient deficiencies, lack of exercise, toxic thoughts, trauma, genetics, and poor digestion. So we see that we've got all of these things at the root underneath. And then how does that play out, or what manifests in that realm? And there's a bunch of things that we can see that we all know people who have this, or, any of these things, or we've experienced ourselves. So again, we're approaching this with curiosity, experiment, interest, and learning and growing, not from a place of shame or perfectionism, because as you can see, it's all interconnected, right? See the roots, they're connected. It's not always easy to tell which one is associated with which. And so part of our lifestyle practice is around working with what's at the root, weaving it, spiraling it, circling it through the seasons of our life. This is another, I just love the idea of, we've got this low level of wellness, the malaise, the wellness continuum over here. And then it kind of, again, intersects and ebbs and flows as we come up to the vital, meaningful life, the high level of wellness, environmental, spiritual wellness, social, physical, intellectual, emotional. Just again, we're looking at things not in terms of it's linear, not in terms of there's a mountain you're going to get to and then you'll be all set. It's so much more about the fluctuations of the body, of the season of life, and how we're metabolizing it and working with it on that continuum. Okay, swastha vrita. I wanted to give you this definition. The science of health, which prescribes a theory and practice of maintenance of public and private health. In Ayurveda is the maintenance of the health of an individual. So what this is saying is that we've got this wheel of all the different kind of elements that intersect. And here are, when we feel in this Vrita state, in this Swastha Vrita state, in this wellness state, in this harmonious state, here's what we have access to: happiness, content, patience, flexibility, confidence, success, self-esteem, organization, optimism, resilience, social well-being, purposeful, and spiritual. One of the things I love the most about Ayurvedic wisdom and medicine is that it includes spiritual as a part of the path. And other systems like functional medicine or anything you sort of subscribe to often leaves out the spiritual. And because this is brought in, I think that's really, just in my personal experience is really the thing that shifted kind of everything. Bringing the spiritual in allowed a deepening of relationship and intimacy with the divine that is almost too difficult to talk about because there's very few words, but it happened through ancestral reverence and practices. And that led me down a path of really reclamation of my own lineage. And so I have all this deep reverence for Ayurveda because it is actually the thing that led me back to my love of Judaism, which is my birth lineage, one part of my birth lineage. I also have Celtic roots. So really powerful to include spirituality. It doesn't say religion. It doesn't say God. It doesn't say believe this. It says, what's your relationship to the divine, divine presence, oneness, creation, spirit, source. There's so many ways to talk about this. So looking at these different areas, where do you feel these beautiful qualities coming through in your life? Oops. Okay. Dosha-specific emotions. So now we're going to get into the emotional realm because this is a very important aspect of Ayurvedic wisdom that in lifestyle practices and in the feminine form of Ayurveda, which I practice and share, is really foundational. It's not clinical. It's much more emotional. It's relational, not transactional, right? We're trying to see and really metabolize the experiences of our life. Now, just a quick overview, Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic wisdom is based on 5-element theory. The elements are starting from sort of the least tangible to the most: ether, air, fire, water, earth. And what the seers, the seekers, the wisdom teachers, the rishis, the knowers, the wise ones in Ayurvedic tradition saw was patterns. So there were some body types that had more earth and water together, and they named that kapha or kapha. There were some body types that had fire and water, and they noticed habits and patterns around that and called it pitta. And then they noticed some air, more air quality, more dry, more ether, more movement, and that became Vata. So when we're talking about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha or Kapha, we're really talking about combinations of elements. Okay, so don't get too hooked up in, I need to know this, or what am I? Don't worry about all of that. In this version that we're sharing and practicing, we're just getting to see patterns and habits that happen in our own bodies and then in those that we know and love and in the world. So dosha-specific emotions. So Vata, again, is that air, ether, the vastness. And that's where we see fear, anxiety, nervousness, worry, restlessness, confusion, that sort of flighty, ungrounded, and lots of guilt. Okay, so that's in the Vata realm. These are the not so healthy emotions that arise. Actually, that's not true. I don't want to say not healthy. I want to say these are the normal reactions, emotions, when that particular quality is out of balance, that particular element is out of balance. Then we have fear, anxiety, nervous. So it's not that it's not healthy per se, because it can be very normal to experience fluctuations. And part of Ayurvedic wisdom is trying to get us to see the normal patterns that we have and then start to work with them so we can have less of them, especially if they're disturbing our life. Pitta. Anger, impatience, sharpness, intensity, very egoic or egotistic. Kapha, dull, heavy, attached, depressed, possessive, like just really kind of almost stuck. It's like, not really having any momentum. Ayurveda is to free the mind, which is trapped in the body. What? Ayurveda is to free the mind, which is trapped in the body. Yoga is to free the soul, which is trapped in the mind. I mean, oh, we could do a whole class on that quote. I'm not going to. We're going to keep going because I want to make sure that you have some information. But that is really, really powerful. I'd love for you to kind of meditate on that for a while. What is emotional health? Okay, so again, I have a bunch of slides that talk about emotions now, which I just want to say are good reminders. They're feelings produced in a response to a life event. Emotional health is a state of general well-being that enables each person to experience joy, meet the demands of everyday life, be resilient, and pursue your own potential. One thing I really want to point out here that comes in Ayurveda is it's the art and science of metabolizing experiences. So 100% of humans experience difficult sadness, anger, grief, trauma, challenges, loss. You cannot be human and bypass the experience of losing things that you love, of having heartbreak at some point in your life. Like that's just actually what it means. So in this practice, we're acknowledging that and we're allowing ourselves space to metabolize the experiences, which in turn metabolizes the emotions, helps us with our reaction to our emotion. 4 components of emotion. So again, not to say this is the thing with a period and you have to believe it, but more, what do you think about this? Have you ever thought about emotional health as part of your physical, mental, spiritual health? So we have emotion in the middle, and then we have these significant life events that come at us. And we have these different ways of thinking about what happens with emotion. We have the feelings, we have physical, the soma, the bodily arousal, certain like your heart rate, your palms sweaty, or maybe you get really tired if you get aroused in a way that your system would like to shut down. Social expression and sense of purpose. Here's another way of looking at it. So we have this emotional intelligence and we have these different realms. I love this because this, for me, as someone who really likes something to look forward to, like my mind is, I have a very strong pitta, fiery, cognitive, sharp mind. And she likes to have somewhere to sort of look towards or move towards. I don't really want to say goal setting because that feels a little too focused. It's much more like, what's emotional intelligence? Understanding emotions, using emotions, managing emotions, and perceiving emotions. And so in my world, I have a very high emotional intelligence. These are things, all 4 of these areas are areas I'm very comfortable with. I have been my whole life. I just have better language for it now, and I'm able to really use it and share it with other people. So I'm asking you, which of these areas do you feel comfortable in? Which of these areas do you not feel comfortable in? Which of these areas in your primary home, when you were being raised, in your childhood, did you not see? A lot of times, I'll speak for myself, in my experience, these traits weren't exactly praised per se. They were much more, I was much more asked to kind of tame them down and hide them. They were not seen as a gift. And I think that's different now. I hope that it's different now in our families, because I really do think talking about these areas of emotion help us release that accumulation that's in the body that's causing so much dis-ease. Here's another realm of emotional intelligence, another way to think about it: self-awareness, social skills, regulation, motivation, and empathy. And this is self-regulation. I just want to add in that we've extended that from the neuroscience to really say co-regulation and community regulation are extremely important to our mental health. Okay, characteristics of good emotional health. Again, let's give our mind something to focus towards for where we're heading. A sense of belonging. Do I feel that? Where do I feel that? A sense of purpose. Do I feel that? Where do I feel that? Where do I not feel that? A positive outlook. That is not about bypass or being positive Pollyanna about everything. It is about seeing bigger picture, macro. One of the practices I have when things get really hard is to just actually come into my body and feel my clothes and feel my, if I have a weighted blanket or I want to get out and touch a tree, they're very tangible, and that can help me see through the difficulty that I may be having. I'm still facing and working with the difficulty, but I'm also allowing myself to be in a state of gratitude. Good self-esteem, self-confidence, application of skill sets. Like I said, identifying emotional intelligence as a gift is really builds my confidence and self-esteem, because it was hard for me to find my place in the world before. And now that I'm, when I was a teacher, they used to always say to me, you're too sensitive, you take it too seriously, you have to toughen up. And I really cringed at that, because I don't know how to do that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to toughen up. I'm not here to take it not personally, caring for students in my classroom and loving them and their families. So I think that applying our skill sets really helps with our confidence. Okay, Sadvrita. So I wanted to do this explanation for you too. Sorry, this definition. Ayurveda describes health as a balance of body, mind, social, and spiritual well-being. In order to achieve this, Ayurveda prescribes certain codes of conduct, and this is known as Sadvrita. The root sad means good, and vrita means regime. So I wanted you to see this, these kind of ethical code of conduct, social and moral, as the regime. That language is way too harsh for me. That's not my favorite, but I get what the intention is, and I understand and respect the tradition that this is a very disciplined, like you can do this in a very disciplined, masculine energy kind of way. And I just honor that and respect it. I prefer guidelines, frameworks. I prefer things that really feel supportive and give me that sort of point of focus as well. So here's our ethical code of conducts, speaking truth. I mean, there's so many wonderful things here. If you want to take a screenshot, I can just be quiet for a second and let you kind of absorb rather than reading all of this to you. But I think that there's a lot here to think about. I think I'm not saying this is right. I'm saying there's a lot to think about. There's a few in there that I struggle with, like never contradict the teacher, even if he or she is angry. That is not in my tradition, the way that I think about questioning and curiosity. I think paradox and contradiction, I think paradox has a lot of wisdom. So that's all I'm going to say about that for now, unless anybody, unless you want to follow up with me so we can talk more. What does this mean to you? Let's put this Sadvrita in context of the Indian tradition, the sort of path of the spiritual one. And, Ayurveda really is meant to be the path of the householder, much more than traditional yoga practices. It was, and what are the things that resonate with us and don't? I think there's a lot of good things on here that can be helpful. And as usual, I think there are things that can have a little bit more conversation about in real life. Okay, next. Okay, so again, here's some techniques that I just think the language around this from the Ayurvedic perspective are so, it can be very grounding and intuitive. So a lot of this on here, we know in our minds, but we may not be practicing in our body. So there's not the embodiment or the integration. aspect. So I love the idea that, you know, these techniques or this wisdom or this technology for Arya, which means life, and Veda, which means wisdom, this life wisdom has some really basic foundational practices from which we're building. And this is that list of them. There's another one coming up right after. Again, feel free to take a screenshot. I don't want to read them all to you. Feel free to pause it and just read through them, maybe circling or thinking about the ones that you feel most connected to. But again, I always love when I see creativity and nature and rhythm and synchronization and flexibility. These are all things that are just really juicy to integrate and embody. Is that the same one? Yes, it is. Oh, there's two. Make people, oh, I love, make people feel important, loved, valued, and appreciated. Like, yes, please, I would like to do that. I'm signing up to do that with my life. So again, another wonderful list. I think it's a wonderful list that's been really helpful to kind of stay in contact with and stay in connection with as I go through my life. Is like, if I'm feeling off balance or off center, if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling sad, I can go to these techniques and really develop and cultivate just rich connection to self, others, and world. It's amazing. Okay, the next piece I want to go into, and I don't want to do too much on this, but I do think they are important concepts for you to understand, is we have the physical elements and embodied constitutions of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. In the work that I do not focus on the negative or the symptoms. I focus on embodied integration for the elements in ways that we call them in. So what are the ways I am the highest and best creative self? What are the ways I am the highest and best in my leadership and in my transformation, which is the Pitta? Creativity is the Vata. And then in what ways am I steady and stable in my rhythms and in my practices, which is the Kapha? So I'm looking at positive resourcing, or the what's right attention. Now, we also have the Mahagunas, which are the mind states. Guna, it has a lot of definitions. In this realm, we're going to call it the quality. So it's the mind quality or the mind state. So we need all three. Sometimes in yoga tradition, you'll hear a lot of like, ooh, sattva, 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 like that's it. That's the thing we're all aspiring for. And what this is saying is it's dispelling the common misconception that sattva is the only thing that you need. It's really saying you need all three, the doshas of the mind. And so we have sattva, our natural calm, sort of Buddha nature, you know, the just peaceful, content state. Rajas is the activated state, and tamas is the inertia or the sort of slower, restful state. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this in is because what impacts our mind states, or the Mahagunas, is our relationship to food, drink, information, movies, books. Everything impacts our mind state. And our mind state can really be disturbing of the rest of our systems. So that's why we spend a lot of time on just cultivating an awareness of the Mahagunas, of sattva, rajas, sattvic states, rajasic states, and tamasic states. And with our sattvic foods, here we go, rajasic foods and tamasic foods. Okay, so the Mahagunas in food and mood. So here's the nature of each guna that we're talking about here, the mind gunas: harmonious balance, creative movement, and stability. Remember, I just said we call in the healthiest versions of our doshas each day in embodied integrated Ayurveda. In the mind, what does that look like? See, clarity. And then in the mind, rajas looks like distraction. In the mind, tamas looks like dullness. And then here's when we're talking about foods and drinks, we're talking about things that are made from love and are easy to digest, are more in that sattvic state. Rajas has the energy, more agitation, fastness, standing up and eating on the go, or making something fast, hurry up and put it together. And then we've all had kind of, it brings me back to like a lot of like education days when there was like a lot of tamas in the line, there'd be like slop on the food line or the buffet line. It'd be like slow, no one really wanting to be there, that kind of thing. And then gut, and then there's some information about digestion there. Oops, hold on 1 minuto, please. Why are you doing this? 1 second. Okay, we only have a few more slides. So then when we're talking about the Mahagunas in terms of self-care and relationships, what are we talking about? Again, going clearer, going deeper with our relationships in general, our self-care, our professional relationships, and our experience in life. And the thing is, I want us again to be working with is not that there's a perfect path. It's that we need all of them in order to have that attention and awareness of the mind states. There are really good things. I love this professional relationships. There are good things to each of these gunas in relationship, at work, especially at all of them, but really in professional. I like these definitions. The last thing I wanted to say is I don't really work with the hero's journey. I tend to, there's a more feminine version, the heroine's journey, that I more closely track and follow. But this, again, was taught within an Ayurvedic context around these stages. And this is really where we're at, is we're really moving through, where are we? We're somewhere around here where this normal world is what I would say Joanna Macy calls business as usual in the work that reconnects, which is a spiritual ecology, again, framework we're just layering in here. This is kind of subconscious, asleep, rote, autopilot. That's this kind of thing that we can get really stuck in here. We don't move down into more of that transformative fire, pitta, burning through process until we actually have some of these trials and failures and we learn new skills. We get help in that. We do it in community care. We take courses, we get held accountable, and we come through this death and rebirth cycle with some revelations, with things being revealed about ourselves, about our patterns and habits. And what I love about this is currently, as I'm recording this, we're in the process, we're in the days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is called the Day of Atonement, often in English. And it's at one ment. Like that's, it's the presence, atonement at one ment. It's, I am at one, I am at peace. I'm seeing who I am. I'm in full, like, yes, I have darkness, I have light, I'm doing the work, the inner work, the inner inquiry, the landscape. I'm going in and I've been looking and seeing, and that's where we get this gift and we get the return. Now, here it says end. I would take out end and I would just say return, begin again, in some way. Maybe you have a pause and you're kind of enjoying walking on the road as you've integrated new things, and then something else will come up and you'll just continue to have spirals of this through your life. Thus, the person is equal to the universe. Whatever forms, entities are found in the universe, they are also found in the person. And what is found in the person is also in the universe. Everything we see, we are. Everything we are, we see. Everything we want to draw into ourselves is seen in nature. I put here, there's one other thing I wanted to the word svasta in yoga tradition is a Sanskrit word meaning to be fully established and rooted in oneself. And that to me is a benefit. It's not on here so clearly, but to be fully rooted in oneself, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the kapha, pitta, vata, all of the sattva, tamas, rajas, all the light, all the dark, you know, that whole hero's journey travel. Here are some other benefits I've heard from many of our students over the years. These are benefits that I've experienced in my own life. And these are the chapters of my audio and text book, Little. Because these teachings are so alive and vibrant, it's quite challenging. And there's so many wonderful texts where you can learn all the traditional clinical herbs and teachings and seasons and cycles. I really wanted to create something that you could use more for daily life at home. If you have a life like me, which is, you know, I'm a householder, I'm domestic, I have children, I have animals, I have a husband, I'm working, I have, you know, a lot more than just my Ayurvedic practice as the main focus of my life. And so these are the teachings that we'll be weaving into the immersion, and also the teachings that really can profoundly shift how you are interacting with your Ayurvedic practices. And we'll be doing them in the immersion. And so this is our fall immersion. We'll probably do it again into the spring. We'd love to have you. And if you have any questions or need a payment plan, feel free to reach out to me. It will be 2 weeks of daily video drops of just 5 to 10 minutes. This is what we're doing today. We'll start with an opening ceremony. We'll close with a closing circle to really root and ground us in community. And honestly, this wisdom is such a joy to share with you. As it is, again, whether you join us in community or not, I hope that you got something today that you are thinking, wow, that makes so much sense. I want to teach this to my children. I want to teach this to my partner. I want to talk more about this at work. You know, I hope that there was one thing today. So just pausing to integrate and embody for you. What is that one thing that you want to learn more about or experiment with? And just as we close, just pausing to honor the sacred time that we've had together from that first candle lighting until now, that we really hold with deep reverence these teachings to the highest and best for our own life, and that we make space to learn and grow together for all the days of our lives.